Hello and welcome to this new program. This new program, because it's new, it's not exactly new because we've been doing it for 2 years, but it's new because it's in English, because I've been doing this in Spanish for 2 years now. And this is a brand new series of programs which we're dedicating to near-death experiences, NDEs, which I have done already in Spanish, but I'm going to do it in English now to reach a wider audience and to spread this word of spirituality to more people, try to get to more people and see what they think about what these special people, because I call them special people, because they've seen things that I've always wanted to see. The envy is unbelievable of what I feel for these people who have been to this place and seen these things and felt these things, because it's more the emotion they feel rather than what they've seen. It's what they feel is what I envy. That pure love and that pure feeling part of something that's greater than them. So being part of the whole is what I envy most of all. So without further ado, let's go across the channel, and we're going to go and speak to someone in the United States of America who had an NDE after a motorcycle accident. His name is Stephen Weber. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, Peter. It's such an honor to be here, and I thank you for hosting this forum. Spreading the word of spirit and connecting with people is essential, and especially in this crazy time we live in.
Oh, especially. There is a lot of, as we said before we started recording, there is a great awakening now. So it's a great moment to have a program like this and to speak to people like you all over the world. And thanks to the internet, sometimes it does have a good purpose. The internet has a lot of bad purposes, but it's sometimes it does some good too. And I think this is a great opportunity to communicate and to join and to help people with their spiritual awakening, with their connection with who they really are.
Their awareness.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right. Spiritual awareness is really important. So let's get started. Exactly, I don't want to really go through, the whole process of the NDE and all that, but exactly what happened, first of all, what happened? I knew it was a motorbike accident, and the feeling you had when you actually got there, when you were dead for how long were you dead? Actually dead or in coma?
I was in a coma,
In
and
coma.
yes, I was in a coma, and I was in a near-death state for about a month. It was very touch and
Wow.
go. Although my heart didn't stop, everything else was was breaking down.
Yeah, it was just zero. Yeah, it's not the first case I've heard of, and actually, I've actually interviewed other people that have had that same thing. Not don't know for about a month though. I think it was about 2 weeks the most. And so when you got there, when you actually realized you were not in your body, how did that come across? How did you feel?
Let me first off is that I didn't know that I was anyplace else at first. I didn't. Is that everything was very deeply rooted in my physical life. In
Right.
fact, I thought I was at work,
Ah,
and things started to change very slowly. And one of the first things I felt and then I experienced was what I call learning the language of the universe. And what I mean by that is that I was a biker. Harley Davidson. I got all these tattoos
you
and
lucky
everything
thing.
else. I love riding. I spent all my life riding, and then to be in this experience is that I had no spiritual experience at all. I loved pretty girls, beer, rock and roll,
That's
pig
right.
roast,
Of course.
and so I guess everyone's experience is I would imagine is tailored for themselves to begin this journey. So it's not that my heart stopped. What I believe and what I began to learn is that just in the same way that your spirit has to go through a transition in order to have a physical incarnation, you have to go through a transition to return back to spirit. And that's what I was going through. My body, by every way, thought it was dying.
Right.
I had internal injuries. My spine was all fractured. My whole left side was crushed. Anywhere else, I would have died. And I believe that my body was going through this death process and preparing me. And so, one of the first preparations is for me to understand spirit in everybody and everything that it surrounds us. Because at that point in my life, if I couldn't see it, touch it, or feel it, it wasn't real.
Like for
And
99% of the people, 99% of the people on the earth think that.
it is
If I
so
can't
true.
feel it, it's not, it doesn't exist.
Well, because you have to get so it's so busy this world these days. You have to make a living. There's so many opportunities, but so many threats. You have to focus on what's in front of you. And sometimes, at least until very recently, that was at least my sole focus and many other people's sole focus. So when I was in that place, is that they first taught me, and when I say they, there was no they. It was just an understanding. Is
Yeah,
that I was shown
yeah,
how to see spirit in everybody and everything. And
right.
the way it was done, and I didn't realize it at first, because I was at work and I saw this fellow who I knew in work. I hadn't seen him in 20 years, and he looked exactly the way I remember him. I was like, wow, you must have good genes, you know?
How do you do it? What's your diet?
Exactly. And it was a very matter of fact conversation. And then that was it. And then I saw him at some point later, and he looked like 40 years older. He looked like an old man. And at first I didn't get it. And I thought, there was mannerisms that were similar to my friend. And I thought maybe this is this guy's father.
Right.
And I asked him, and he said, no, he is actually my friend. I was like, wow, 2 seconds ago, I saw him as a young person. Now I see him as an old person. That is weird. Then the next thing happened. I saw him again, but he was a young child. And then what was starting to happen is, how would I notice him? Is like he would say something. He was a very animated fellow. He would say something, or he would have a certain mannerism, and I'll be like, oh, you're so-and-so. And then I kind of got it like it was a game. Why I didn't think this, I thought this was odd, but I don't know. I was just going with it. And so he appeared to me in every shape or form someone can be. He appeared to be an Asian person, an African person. He appeared to me in all different ages. And after a while, I didn't have to see him or see his mannerisms. At first I would feel an energy, and I would rely a little bit on the energy, but mostly upon a mannerism. But as this went through many, many times, a lot closer to 1,000,000 than it was to one, is that I began to sense this energy. And then after a while, as soon as he walked in, I knew it was him.
Right.
And once I had that awareness and I felt that energy, I looked around at the world with a new set of eyes.
Right.
And so everything now looked different to me. Everything had a spirit, everything had an energy. And I sensed that those spirits, they evolved over time through many incarnations. And what I was doing is I was preparing to reflect upon my life experience to perhaps raise my awareness. And that was my first recollection in that place.
So, a question I've got, because as I said, I've interviewed quite a few of them. I've interviewed quite a few NDEs, and when you communicated with this person, was it verbal or was it mental?
Okay. It was mental. Everything was what was mental there. But I don't mean it was like mental, like Star Trek, a big head.
No. I understand.
It was just like an awareness. I don't know how to say, is that I just made it known and I received it.
Yeah.
But for some reason it didn't seem odd to me. It seemed like the way to do it.
Yeah. That's what I've heard many a time from when people have been found with family members or people they know, like yourself. They have this, they actually said it wasn't like telepathy, it was like a knowing that they were communicating with you and you know what they were thinking. It was just the knowing of what they were trying to say to you.
Yes, I think it was the second part you said, is what they're trying to say to you. It wasn't like I could read their mind, like
No.
it was that they made their thoughts aware to me, and I received them, and it was a perfect way of communicating. But it wasn't just that. In that place, my first introduction, in addition to seeing spirit, one of the things that I noticed, that things were, that I wasn't in Kansas anymore, is that time didn't seem to matter anymore. It was like, the sun didn't rise or fall unless it was part of the experience. Like there wasn't food that spoiled. I didn't go to work or get up or travel anywhere. I was exposed to experience after experience. I couldn't control what experience I had, but I had a lot of control within the experience. And the thing about time is what is time to us is that we have appointments in the future. You know, you turn on a flame on water, water boils, things happen. There, nothing happens unless you grow. And what I mean is that the only sense of time is that you could look back, you know, the way you thought a certain way, and you could recall your experiences to your awareness now, and that gave you a sense of time. But it wasn't time in the sense that the sun rises and I have to see Aunt Gertrude in 2 o'clock today.
Yeah, like all the mundane things disappear. It's just a matter of experience and a matter of growing.
It was almost like a stage, like the stage was set and
Yeah.
the circumstances were set.
Right.
And get at it, Steve.
Yeah. There was another thing you said also that that reminded me of a film, because I've got the understanding the same as you, although I haven't had an NDE, is that from this wholeness, there's like nerves that come out, and each nerve is one of us, or is a living thing, or is something that is a growing spiritual thing, no? And I used to explain this to the kids because I used to teach kids at school religion. And I used to teach religion globally, I say not just any religion in particular, but all of the religions and what really religion means and spirituality. And I used to explain it with a tree because I didn't understand it. I said, well, if you imagine there's a tree trunk, which is actual consciousness, which is the actual whole, is a whole. And then you've got the branches, and then you've got the leaves. And the leaves are us. So we're independent, but we belong to a whole. And that's how I used to explain it to them. And that was beautifully explained in Avatar. It was beautifully explained in Avatar.
That is so true. I'd like to say something about that as far as the tree and the leaf analogy. I identify that very much so. But I look at it I phrase it a little bit differently. And this is just the universe according to Steve, you know, and that's all blah, blah, blah. All I did was survive. You know, I'm not well educated in these matters, and everything I talk is just from my experience. And I wanted to survive at the time.
Yeah, everyone's perception is different. Everyone's perception, because everyone's experience is different. So everyone's perception is different.
But what I felt is that when I first was there and I was understanding spirit, I felt like I was sharing my experiences with the universe. Right. And I was receiving certain wisdom from the universe.
Right.
And that wisdom gave me the ability to face what I was going to face.
Right.
But what I felt was that me as an individual is that I have my own spirit. I do. I have my own spirit, and I have my own destiny, and not destiny, but my own path in life that I'm going to experience. Yeah. As I grow and my awareness grows, so does everyone else, because everyone else is doing this at the same time. And so if we take a look at all of our awareness and all of our consciousness, if the creator and the creation are one, really, as we learn and grow, perhaps the creator learns and grows. Is that I was always taught that the creator is perfect just the way they are. And they are, because that they aren't perfect, that every spirit, everything learns and grows. And so as we learn and grow, and the consciousness of the creation learns and grows. And this is where I'll turn it back to science and spirit again, because picture the creation event, the Big Bang or Let There Be Light. We all come from a singularity. We're all together in the one, we're all stardust and we're all spirit. The creation event happens. Universes expand. Life is experienced and evolved, and spirit is evolved. And when it's all said and done, I believe perhaps we may once again return back to that singularity. And when we do, I think that all of our consciousness together make up the consciousness of the creator. Is that we ourselves will always have our distinct identity, but we are connected as one with the creation.
That's exactly what I was trying to explain before. Yeah, exactly. The creator is that tree trunk, and we're the leaves, and we're all part of it. We're part of that. We're apporting, we're giving to that consciousness, that global consciousness, universal consciousness, whatever you want to call it, or God, or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter what you call it. There, many different cultures call it different things, but it still comes down to the same thing. That's what we're trying to. We have so many differences on Earth, but it's just language that separates us.
Mm, so
Just
true.
language. And when there's wars about language, we're calling it the same thing. We're talking about the same thing using different language, and it's a shame. It really is a shame. And since I've been doing this, and since I've been learning from people like you and people, loads of different people from different parts of the world, they all talk about the same thing. That it's all the same. I've come to learn. No matter if you're a biologist, if you're a genealogist, if you're, doesn't matter. If you're, I don't know, from any parts of the world, any culture in the world, they all talk about the same thing. Always.
Know what's know what's helped me to understand that? Technology.
Of course.
Well, really, because like I'm an engineer, I'm an electrical engineer. I mean, I'm retired now, just a few months. I'm still adjusting, but but so much of my time is spent on meetings with people all around the world, and
Right.
I've worked with these people for decades. And I've gotten to know them well, especially people in Asia and Europe
Right.
and Eastern Europe and all and people who look very different from me. And
Yeah.
I got to know them so well just by working with them in a way that you couldn't, because you're working on projects and doing things. And I've really got to understand them as they me. And so I remember in the past when I would see terrible things going on in the world and I would see the people, it would be like, okay, that's far away and I don't feel really connected. I mean, they look so different. Their life is so different. Oh, I hope everything works out okay, but now, like, I not only can I feel their spirit from my experience, but just from technology, getting to know people, and I realize that you're right. It's just language. Everybody has the same goals and objectives, and sure, their own particular culture can put certain shades in front of their eyes, as mine does, as I'm sure yours does, and everybody else. But in the end, we're all the same. Well, we're all on a similar path, I should say.
We are. I agree with that totally. And yeah, I for many, many years, I've always had uh, a good eye for what's going on around me. And I've always noticed things that other since I was a small child. And I've noticed things that other people wouldn't notice, that they go about their lives and I've always noticed thing about the cultures. So the cultures always intrigued me. And I've never understood conflict because of difference of culture. Let it be, I don't know, for countries, patriotism, or let it be religion or political or whatever. I've never understood why people fight over the same thing spoken in a different way. Because I understand they're talking about the same thing. They're talking about the same thing and they're fighting over something that's not even theirs. I mean, the world isn't ours. We're living on it. It's borrowed. So it's borrowed. We don't have anything. We borrow everything we have. We go exactly the way we come, with nothing. With nothing.
And perhaps the only thing you take is your experiences with you.
That's right. That's the only thing. But then we don't take that. Our spirit takes that. The actual body doesn't take anything. The physical part of us doesn't take anything with us at all. The only thing we take is the experience, like you say.
I think so much of that, and you raise a very good point about the battles and all the things that have happened over things like politics, religion, culture, and all those things. I take a look at those things and I think I know the root cause of all of that is that a lot of times we just don't know each other.
Yeah.
And we don't know us as humans. And when I was speaking about the technology and how that brought me together with other people around the world, is once you get to know people, you don't do those things anymore. It's different, and that's really what I get out of it. Is that if the more we can bring together, have conversations, just normal conversations, I think that there may be less of those. I think we're looking at a world of abundance coming soon with this AI technology and CRISPR tech, this gene editing and such. As we walk the path of discovering that we're the creator, I believe that we're going to be pretty well off if we just don't destroy ourselves before then. And I think in our lifetime and very soon, like this AI technology, I spend a lot of time with it, and it's really teaching me about myself and the way that
Mm,
I reason and the way that people reason.
mm.
And I think things are going to get better. We're having a rocky time here, but
Yeah.
speaking of science, they are going to align, and I believe.
I do too. I do really do. I'm an optimist when it comes to that. When it comes to global issues, let's call it. Let it be war, let it be, I don't know, politics or religion or whatever it is. I think we're coming to an era now where we have to come together, where the world is getting smaller because of technology, because of we're able to fly anywhere in the world now within a day. The world's getting smaller all the time, and with technology like this, like we're using now, you can talk to anyone just a click of a finger at any time, and you can speak to anyone in the world, and that helps. That's helping our children, our next generation, to start from that point. We haven't started from that point. This has only been existing. It's only existed for the last 10, 15 years. So we're using it, but we haven't grown up with it. We grew up without all this. And so our kids are starting from there. So hopefully they're going to use it in the right way, and they're going to be a lot more open-minded, more than we were.
I believe also a very important part of open-mindedness, which causes closed-mindedness, is something as simple as rooting for your team. Is that people forget about the issues at hand and they're just rooting for their team. Like in the United States, there are two teams here. There's the Republicans and the Democrats.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes people lose sight of the issues at hand because they want to win. They want their team to win. They want the affirmation that they're right. I remember at one time after I graduated from college, I didn't have much money. I had to live in a neighborhood that wasn't so good. And that it adhered to one political party. And I would look around and I'd see how terrible things are. And I would be like, why are they voting for the same party over and over again? And I was talking to, a friend of mine, and he said, well, but all of a sudden you would start, rooting for Manchester United. It's like
Never, never.
They have a bad team. We'll stick it out. They'll change. And that's how these things go. I think a lot of it is that a lot of people just rooting for their team, and they lose sight of really the issues at hand.
That's
and
right.
I think
You're right
that's
there.
of many.
But I think in politics, especially in the United States, in the last year, a lot of people have realized that rooting for the right team isn't getting them answers. So it doesn't really matter what team you root for, as long as it's good for the country. And the people are starting to realize that. And so you shouldn't root for a team. You should root for what's good. And that's in anything. In anything. Is it good for you? Good. Then follow it. If it's not good for you, leave it. It's like being a Catholic or being a Jew or being whatever, or believing in certain things. Is it good for you? You feel okay with it? Does it resonate with you? Yeah, then do it. If it doesn't, then don't. But respect me, because I don't. So the thing is, you have to respect the other side too, the other people who don't resonate with it, because everyone's different.
Very, very wise words. You have some experience.
It's true. It's true. I've grown up with all types of people. I mean, I've grown up with all types of people. I've been surrounded by drugs all my life. I've never touched drugs in my life, never, not once. And I've been surrounded by it all my life. I was grown up with as a Catholic, because my mother was Italian, my father was English, so I was grown up a Roman Catholic. All went to Catholic schools. Later, I didn't practice it, but then I went to a school. I started working in a school here, which is an Opus Dei school, which is a very strict Catholic school, and I was working there for 13 years. Brilliant. I didn't have any problems whatsoever. Didn't agree with all the ideas they had, but they lived their life, I lived mine. I just worked there. So, you just agree with it, you just go with it. And that's it. You don't have to agree with someone to be their friend. You don't have to. And I've come to understand that as you get older. It's like those t-shirts that you see go around now. So I don't give a shit because I'm over 50.
That's
You
great.
get to a certain age and you think, I don't give a shit anymore because I'm over 50 now. I understand. I don't care what you think. Have you read that book by Terry Cole Whitaker?
No.
What you think of me is none of my business.
That's great. I live, like I was mentioning, I live in Florida in the United States, and I live in a 50+ community.
Right.
And this is like paradise. I mean,
Telling me, no kids.
it is great because that what happens is everyone's come from somewhere else and they have certain ideals that are about, friendship and family and live and let live. It is the most conservative and liberal place I've ever lived in my life, because you could do whatever you want as long as you
Yeah.
as long as it's you.
Yeah.
You're not in everyone's face. You're not trying to convince anybody. Everyone's worked through those things already, and it is very comfortable. And I'm right next to an all age community, so it's great because I'm just not around a whole bunch of old folks like me all the time.
That's fun. It's good for you. That's nice. So you're like you're all like-minded, although you don't think the same. So that's
Well, I'll
great.
give I'll give you a perfect example. I get a lot of people from the Midwest United States. They are, I mean, everyone's wonderful, but people from the Midwest, they're very down earth. They're very, the first thing they'll do is they'll come over with a pan of food. If I don't come out of my house for 2 days, people are knocking at my door, bringing me food, want to make sure I'm okay, and not like those things. But the houses are close together, so it's a very tight community, and that's beautiful. And I think in so many places in the world, we lost that. When I was in New York, I lived there all my life,
Oof.
especially during the pandemic. That was a dystopian hellscape at times. It really was, especially at the end. At times, there was beautiful pleasures. I loved New York City at some points, but I think we all took a left turn somewhere, and I just mean that figuratively, that we were on the right path somewhere, but we turned somewhere.
Yeah.
But I think the world is starting to come together again. I mean, let's see. But I'm optimistic, and I'm going to make a bright future.
I'm glad. I'm glad. I lived in London for 8 years too, and it was the worst 8 years of my life. It was terrible. I just couldn't wait to get out there, and I ended up in Spain. So I just had to get out of not only London but England. I just love.
Uh,
I couldn't stand it. It was horrible, and that was way before the pandemic. Way before. I was.
I think in order for me to really, at least at this point in my life, to really be able to reflect upon myself and spirit and all those things, I can't have a lot of turmoil going on in my life, because that, especially where I live, because it requires so much of your mental energy. And to be in a tranquil place is, I mean, I heard a car horn like 3 days ago. I was shocked by it, and I mean, it's probably not by accident, but I think that's a sea of tranquility right behind you on your screenshot.
Yeah, that's
I mean, on your back.
the moon.
Yeah,
The moon.
and that's a sea of tranquility on the moon there.
It
And
is.
so,
It is. It's
isn't that
beautiful.
great?
Absolutely beautiful.
But where you are, and just finding peace and good people and those types of things are really, really vital to your mental state. It's when we become detached from each other and we start, and you raised a really good point where you said that you don't have to know the way someone feels about everything, just how they act towards you, how they treat you, how they behave. That's the key. They could be whatever. I like rock and roll, you like classical music, okay, let's share.
Right. But you can, it's like I said, you could be two people who like rock and roll, and one of you could be a dick, and you're not going to like them. So, and because he likes rock and roll, it doesn't mean he has a lot in common with you. I mean, it's like the same. You can have Democrats who are dicks, and you can have the other ones who are dicks. So you can't generalize in anything at all.
And there's a danger in that. And
Oh,
I remember, in college we talked about this a lot. I forget the name they call it, the type of bias, but it's that I find that I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. I was thinking,
you were in college.
and I forgot what I was going to
Don't
talk
worry.
about.
Don't worry.
Okay.
It'll come back to you. I'm sure of it.
All right, great. It'll come back to me in 2 seconds. Well, what happens is that I start to think about something. I think about something else. My mind goes there, and then I try to get back.
All this channeling comes through. All this information starts coming through. So from that moment, from the moment you came back from the coma, your perception changed radically, of course.
Well, at first, but there were a series of things that happened. It wasn't just the coma and that first experience. There were several other experiences that happened after that really foretold the next steps when I came back to physical consciousness. And one of those things was the life review. And that was very important because that I came to terms with so many things in my life. And I gained the wisdom, like so many things in your life that you have unresolved, and they cause you trauma or you didn't understand it. As you go through your life review in that place, you become to understand these things. And I went through life review so many times, and each time I finished, I knew it was going to be a terrible day and I was going to have to really suffer. But at the end, I would feel such bliss, because when I felt like all of anxiety or shame or regret lifted from me through understanding, I would feel happy and bliss. And so I knew it would be a bad day, but at the end I would be happy. And what that really did is that really raised my awareness. So it prepared me for the next step I was to go through, where I was to mentor some young spirits who are yet to have a physical incarnation. And I need to have those skills prior to that point. I did fail initially with the young spirits, but eventually I got it. So when I returned into my physical body, at least my awareness, is that at first, once again, as I didn't know anything happened to me, my first recollection was my mother was holding my hand and telling me I had been in a terrible accident and I was going to be all right. And I knew if my mother said I was going to be all right, done deal, I knew I was going to be all right. Although I was intubated and I was in, it was just a bad case. But at first, I was kind of like half there and half here. Right. It took a little while for me to really start to come to terms with things. After they took the intubation out and I started to go into rehab, I started to reflect upon that place between here and there. And what I thought to myself for a whole year, that's all a bunch of bullshit. I have an active imagination. Really, it was like, okay, it's a trippy experience. Got a 6-pack to go, it was, and that was what was it. And then what I started to do is I started to tell a close friend and family about the things I dreamed about. And then I had this close friend, Kathy, who I'd go for hikes with. And every time I told her a little story about that place, I would laugh and say, the universe according to Steve. And at some point she stopped laughing. and she really, she's a very sweetheart person, dear friend of mine, Kathy, and co-writer of my book, The Place Between Here and There. And it was, it really was, it took a long time for me to become to terms with it, that perhaps this was a real experience and that I learned so much from it. And that it's not about anything other than, if there was one moral to the story, which I have learned over all my experiences in that place, is life is good and people are good, even when sad things happen. Yeah. And that's really true, is that so many times I learned that you've suffered the cost, you might as well get the benefit. And that's really what that life review taught me, is that once you come to terms with things, you're liberated. And so even to this day, I constantly review my life. And if I can't look back to myself 6 months ago and think what a jerk I was, it means I'm not growing.
That's right. I think that's a very important point you made there, because I think to help with that is meditation. Meditation helps you be more aware of how you are, how you feel, and who you are. You go inside, and we live, 99% of the people on the earth live from outside in. And I said this in my book too, and I've said this all the time throughout the book. We should never live from outside in, which we all do, and we should live from inside out, from the inside outwards. And that's a very, very important point that I bring up to everyone. I mean, especially my kids, because they're now grown up, but I've used that a lot at the dinner table and saying, from the inside out, from the inside, don't work from the outside.
Inside out, yes. I'm going to use that. That is wonderful.
Good.
That is wonderful. You mentioned meditation. I lead a meditation class once a week here, and it's since I live in this 50 plus community, I get this free room, so I don't have to pay for it. And I get 100 people a week, sometimes 50 and 100 people a week. Wow. I have this big, huge gong that I play. And so it's called Mantras, Meditations, and Good Vibrations. It's for free. And I tell you, it's such a wonderful experience for me.
No, no, it
but
is.
also
It is. It is.
for everyone who comes, because one thing about gong meditation, which I especially like, is that for me and for many other people, I can't get the chatter out of my mind to meditate.
Of course.
Anytime I try to meditate, I wind up contemplating and not meditating. And it was something about the gong that just like, it's almost like the surf on the shore, that it kind of like enables you to relax and begin to clear out your mind. And once, at least for me, once I get my mind clear and I'm in that state for a while, I come out of it, I could approach everything with this fresh set of eyes. And sometimes things that were very traumatic or difficult, but now seem silly and simple.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that reset. It really is. Meditation, I believe, is fun.
It is.
It's great. It brings a great community, especially sound meditation that I enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, it's really, really important. When I was teaching, I used to do it with the kids. I was the only teacher who would. I was the strange one in the school, and because I used to teach PE from physical education from year 1 up to year 6, because I was a primary teacher. What I used to do with them was once a week, we used to go down to the gym. We used to get the yoga mats out, sit down on the yoga mats with 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and sit them down, cross their legs, and close their eyes. And of course, with a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old, to have them sit down still for 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
That's a task.
We started off with 10, and then we went up to 20, and they were asking for it at the end of the year. Because what we used to do is I used to train them because it's impossible to blank your mind. You can't do that. No one can blank their mind. Your mind's working all the time, and there's thoughts going through your mind all the time. Now, to be conscious or to be aware of what's going through your mind is different. So what I used to do with them is I used to say to them, sit down, close your eyes, control your breathing, breathe in slowly, out slowly. And we used to do it all together when they close their eyes. And then I used to say, think about the air going in and out of your lungs. Just imagine the air going in and out your lungs. Imagine the air going in and out your lungs. And if your mind goes to a different place, if you start thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow, if you're going to play football or whatever, go back. The difficult thing is to realize your mind's leaving. That's the most difficult part. Once you've dominated that, it's easy because you can just concentrate on one thing.
If you could get 6-year-olds to sit, you are
20 minutes. 20 minutes. I was very proud of that.
Well, I find like, and that's a very, when you're talking about the breathing, pranayama, and then what I do in the meditation class, mantras, meditations, and good vibrations, is that we use the mantras with breathing, with the breathing that you said. And what that does is 2 things. If you're reciting a mantra over and over again, like Om Namo Gurudev Namo, if you're reciting that over and over again, you're concentrating on your breathing, all that. It takes away what you would say, at least in my understanding, it takes away all that other stuff. It enables you to, your mind's always thinking, but it enables you to be somewhere else, to go from within to out.
Yeah, it turns off the radio because there's radio going on in your mind all the time, going on and on and on. And if you're not thinking about, if you're an adult, you're thinking about your wife, you're thinking about the kids, you're thinking about tomorrow, you're thinking about this, thinking about work. And your mind is impossible to stop it unless you begin to think about one thing. If you keep your mind on one thing and realize it's going, then it starts getting easy. And towards the end of the year, what we used to do is we used to go on trips. I'll say in our minds. I used to sit them down, do the 5-minute relaxation, and then I used to take them to places. I used to put very soft music, like meditation music. And then they used to listen to my voice as I was guide them. I would take them to the mountains. I would take them to the beach. I would take them to Disneyland. I would take them to different places. And I used to say, now feel the feeling, feel the actual thrill of being on the roller coaster. Feel it. Can you feel the air in your face? Can you smell the popcorn? Can you smell the sweet apples? Can you feel this? And used to you actually jump their imagination to help them with other subjects. So it was a good thing to use as well, apart from keeping concentrated on one thing.
The guided meditation, no, that's very effective. I I could see how the kids would respond to that as well as adults, because you start to turn on, if you get that other person into that place, by the senses. Do you smell the air? Do you feel the spray of the water? Do you feel the sunshine? Do you hear the horn? All of a sudden they're there and they're not here.
That's right. That's right. And the kids would really ask for it. They would say, "Oh, no, the action." I had a problem towards the end of the because they were so into it that some kids used to pee themselves without noticing. And when they
Oh
finished the
boy.
meditation, they would get up and they would realize they have actually peed themselves because they
Oh,
relaxed so much and they were like really ashamed. So, don't worry, you were not here. You were somewhere else. So don't worry about it. Especially the little ones. The little ones, they used to just relax so well and you take their mind off. It was really, really good. I used to enjoy it.
that's wonderful. Oh my,
It was really good
uh,
fun. It was really good fun. And then a month later, I was fired. So,
because you're doing too good of a job.
yeah, yeah, well, yeah, that was exactly what happened. Exactly.
Oh
We
boy.
had a headmaster who was a egocentric person who wanted all the attention on him, and he did
Mm.
everything correctly. He did it, and the parents, the children, the
Ah.
teachers, everything was him. And I'm afraid
Sounds like a real rare person these days.
there's a lot of those in the world. Yeah. Well, especially with Instagram and TikTok and all these things, like egocentricity is like a big thing now in the world. But I think that's come down to internet too. It's a shame. That's the bad way of using internet.
One of my former, I was elected to a school board, and I ran a very large school district. And in New York, there's a lot of regulation, so you don't have a lot of freedom there. And one of the things I advocated very strongly for is that when kids would misbehave, they would be assigned detention. They'd basically have to sit in a room and do nothing for like an hour or two after school. It was I don't know if it was very effective. And what I advocated very strongly for was for meditation and yoga,
Of
and
course.
to have the kids to do that instead. They
Yeah.
could either do that or sit, to give them that choice. And in New York, you couldn't do that because they would have to have a teaching certificate. They would have to have this. They'd have to have that. It made it impossible. And that's what some of the, you mentioned the head schoolmaster. He had his way. He had his open to do things. In so many places, it's either individual or regulations that prevent common sense to introduce these things. Why detention? Just meditate. Let's do some stretching. If you give a kid a choice to sit in a desk doing nothing or doing this, they'll choose doing this.
Of course it will. Of course there was. There's a lot of things that have to change in education. A lot of things. Because we're still using an education system that was made in the 1920s for the Industrial Revolution. And we're still making people to work in factories.
Yeah, one of the big challenges is that especially at that time is that in a class everyone has to go at the same pace.
That's right.
But some people go faster in different subjects. Some people learn differently. And I really think that's our challenge going forward, is to enable individualized education. We used to call it an IEP, but individualized education. But so if you have the ability in a certain subject to really grasp new concepts, and you should be able to do that without having to drag other people with you, and vice versa, that everybody needs to have their own individualized education. Some people may be able to get through it in 10 years. Some people may take them 14 years, for primary and secondary education. Who knows? But I really think that's our greatest opportunity going
It's
forward.
starting to happen here in Europe. They're starting to do that now. We're starting to try and help those who are well endowed or those who are not, and or less. And I realized when I was a teacher for 25 years, towards the end of my career, before I finished, that the ones who had problems in class, behavior problems, were the ones who didn't understand or understood really, really well. The ones in the middle, the gray ones in the middle, never caused any problems. Never. It was always the ones that didn't reach the minimums and the ones that surpassed the maximums. You had to
That's
wait for the rest. There was always a problem with those. And
that's
realize that.
Yeah, I see that as well. I really do. I think that so much of it is the individualized. Getting to spirit is that we're all individuals. We're all together, and I think that these things have to be incorporated more within our societies. And I think we're getting there, but it's gonna take a little. It's gonna take time. Do you believe in coincidences?
No, no, they don't exist.
Yeah, I'm starting to have my doubts about that because I've
No,
had certain experiences that are just so linked together that I don't know.
no, coincidence doesn't exist at all. No, no, no. Things happen because they are meant to happen, and because um, it's the right moment for that thing to happen
Mm.
in your life.
What really changed it for me was this one experience that I had walking on the beach with my friend Kathy, and it really changed my view on coincidences. Because if you can't see it, touch it, oh, coincidence, okay. You could draw a connection between anything. I'm always analyzing things like that. But one day I was walking along the beach with my friend Kathy, and
Right.
she would search for beach glass. It was glass that washed up on the shore, all
Yeah.
different colors.
Yeah.
And so we're walking along the beach, and she wanted to find violet beach glass.
Yeah.
In Long Island, where we lived, you would find hen's teeth before you would find violet beach glass. And so and so we're walking along the beach, minding our own business, and she starts getting depressed, and because she couldn't find beach glass, and so she was praying to the Violet Flame, Saint Germain. And
Saint
she was praying
Germain.
to Saint Germain for a sign, and so that's why she wanted to heal the world because we're going through that terrible pandemic for so long, and at the end, she didn't find her glass, and she didn't get her affirmation for what she was praying for to the Violet Flame. And so we're walking away, and just then this Dalmatian puppy, it's all white with black spots on it, comes running out of nowhere and starts jumping all over us. And I was like, yeah. And the owner comes from behind the sand dunes, maybe they're taking a pee or something,
Yeah.
and comes up behind the sand dunes, and I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And I'm like, no, that's okay. I love the dog and everything else. And so I asked what the dog's name is. And she said the dog's name is Violet. And I was like stammering, but Kathy, she's talking away. She's not getting it. And so I'm walking away, and I'm saying to Kathy, she's saying, oh, no Violet beach glass. I said to her, the dog's name is Violet, a Dalmatian. It's Violet. And finally she got it. And I said that we have to see that lady again. Something's weird about that. I don't know. I'm getting the feeling that is just that's a sign.
Of course it is.
And sometimes when people receive signs, they're like, oh wow, that's from grandma, and they let it go away. But if you take a moment to think about why you're receiving that sign, there may be something else there.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Just so happens, like 2 weeks later, people walk along the same beach all the time. We see the lady again. And so we go running up to her, the dog's there. And so I asked her, how does your dog get to name Violet? This is a Dalmatian, Violet. And she said, well, there was this movie Gone with the Wind, and that was her and her son's favorite movie. And the main character in there was Scarlett O'Hara, and she wore this big violet dress. And so they loved the movie. And so when the dog was born, when they got the dog, they named it Violet, but they spelled it the way Scarlett spells her name. And she told me her son had passed.
Right.
And that was a tribute to her son.
Uh-huh.
Well, my son had died just about a year earlier. And how does that happen? Like, how does that happen? That she became a very good friend of ours. And I thought I had everything worked out in my mind already, but no, we shared so much. It was during that crazy pandemic as well. And it helped us both tremendously.
Of course.
And was that a coincidence that we met and the
No.
dog's name was Violet and all those things?
No.
It's like those experiences, like, wow, it hits square between the eyes. And so now when I see signs, is that I don't say, wow, sign. I try to find out, why am I getting this message? And more as I go through life, as I'm walking along a certain understanding of path, the more signs I see and understand, the more of an affirmation that perhaps I'm on the right path. If I'm not getting signs, perhaps I have to rethink things. And these are things that, it's all in Steve's mind, but it really, I'm starting to work through this and beginning to understand it and realizing that, there's help out there if we know where to look.
There is. Of course there is. And that's what Carl Jung called synchronicity.
Mm.
Synchronicity is what it is synchronicity. I have a sign that I get all the time when I'm thinking about whether I'm making the right decision or not on decisions that arrive in life, and important decisions. I always ask for a sign, and the same sign comes all the time, which is a robin redbreast. Every time without fail, I have a picture here. Every time without fail. See that?
It's fading in and out, but I see it, yes.
Well, the robin redbreast appears every time I have to make a decision whether I'm going the right direction or not. And there was one decision I had to make about 6 months ago. I think it was about 6 months ago. About some classes I was doing and whatever online. And the robin didn't appear. I said, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And I was going out, and I didn't go out for a few days. I was at home. And I live on the first floor in a flat. And my kitchen window, just below, there's some garages and there's a little garden. And I had the window open on the terrace. And sure enough, I was washing up in the morning, and a robin redbreast appeared at the window and posed on the windowsill of my kitchen. And I said, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. What are the possibilities in a city for a robin redbreast to appear on my window? I mean, any bird could have appeared, but it was a robin redbreast.
See, I think these messages are all around us, and it's all about tuning into them and understanding. Like for you, the robin redbreast is personal messenger. Yeah. Other people have shared with me, like perhaps when they see a hummingbird or a butterfly or other types of spirit animals. It helps give you a little bit of guidance on what's to come next.
Yeah.
You mentioned mediumship earlier when we were discussing. One thing I have become more aware of is, since having my experiences, is I have visions of things that are yet to happen, and at first I would dismiss them, and even before I had my accident, I now reflect back on visions I had and I just dismiss them. Yeah. But a lot of times I get it wrong. And what I mean by that is I'm presented with a vision and I interpret it, but my interpretation isn't always right. Right. And that's really what I've begun to discover is that okay, like I dreamed I dreamed that I was in a horrible accident. I dreamed that it would be like when I was 40 years old, and I was in the passenger seat in a car, and that I would survive it, but my life would be forever changed. And this is something that would be reoccurring over and over and over again. Right. And then eventually I was in an accident, but it wasn't a passenger seat. I was on a motorcycle. Right. And the way I interpreted, the reason why I thought I was in a car was I didn't see a steering wheel, but I saw a windshield, and it was my misinterpretations. And so I find that when I receive visions and dreams and such, is that I work on the interpretations so much. That do I have it right? Am I seeing the right thing? One thing is I often have a vision is that I'm speaking before a very large audience, right? And I believe I'm speaking in Spanish, and that I'm speaking about spiritual matters, right? And at the times that I first had this, I was 0 on the spirituality scale. It seemed so unrealistic. But now, as I reflect upon that, well, I'm not sure. I remember being in front of a very large audience, and am I speaking Spanish? Well, I don't know. Like people look like they're from a different culture,
Right.
and I make those jumps, and sometimes those jumps aren't real, and sometimes they are. And so
Yeah.
this is what I try to spend a lot of time figuring out, is that my intuition, I try to let my intuition guide. I combine it with my spirit as well as my intellectual ability. I don't always get it right, but the more as time goes on and life goes on, I believe I get it right more often.
Yeah, yeah, but that's happened sometimes because it happens to me when I'm channeling too. Because when I channel, sometimes it's not easy to interpret the information you receive. And like the same with you, you're channeling stuff, you're getting information, but sometimes we don't know because the mental block gets in the way. Our mind gets in the way because when we channel with an intuition that comes from a different dimension, which is much higher than us, and we couldn't even think in that dimension, like dimension 22, 23, 25, or 30, whatever. When it comes down to our level and we try to interpret it, is very difficult for us because we're very dense human beings. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult, and I can understand that. And I've been doing it for years, and I'm still getting it wrong. So, but then I have learned, what I have learned is to interpret it after I read it, after that what I see is going to happen happens. I say, now I get it. Now I get it. And that's why it happened too. Because sometimes you don't know why it's going to happen. You're saying, why is this going to happen? Why is this happening to me? And then later you find out why. You go, now I understand why. Like
Yes, yes. More pieces come in to help you understand that. Oh, that's a very good point you make, Peter. Very good
it
point.
is important because when people think that everything's going wrong, everything's going wrong, everything's going wrong, it's wait a minute. Wait a minute. It could be going wrong, but it's going wrong for a reason. Maybe something better is coming afterwards. Wait, be patient. Try to like Rocky Balboa said in the film, it's not how many punches you can take, it's how many times you can get up and carry on walking. Just
Yes.
keep walking, and then you'll see what happens, why it happens later on. Just be patient.
Very, very wise words. Very, very good.
It's very important to be patient. Last of all, I want you to talk about the book. How did you focus the book?
Well, the book tells part of my experience, and that the book is focused mostly on the discovery, coming from somebody who was zero on the spirituality scale, coming to terms with having this experience, and then actually sharing what I learned from this experience. Entwined in the book, The Place Between Here and There, entwined in that is actually a love story between me and my dear friend Kathy, and it is very she I was so stubborn, and she really worked very hard because she's a very spiritual person, and it was like a project of hers to help me see that it isn't like the universe, according to Steve, that perhaps I had a very touching spiritual experience that not only did I survive, but perhaps helped me prepare for things that were yet to come in
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
And it
that's what
really
it is.
is, because I learned so much. It almost seems like there were these sequence of events that happened in my life that it's almost like, how did this happen by accident? I mean, when I was in that other place, I never had the feeling like somebody was stirring the pot or guiding things. But it fits together so well. Like
Yeah.
one point, Kathy and I would disagree on. She would say that you would have this life plan that you would execute. And I never had that feeling that I had a life plan. I had a feeling that the stage was set. But the way these things kind of fit together, I don't know. I'm
No,
not
there
ready
is
to
a
make
life
that
plan.
leap yet, but it's interesting.
There is a life plan, yeah. We're just that we can sometimes we take the short road, sometimes we take the long road, but we always end up in the place where we wanted to go to. Sometimes we do
Yeah.
go in a different direction and we never do it, and then we have to come back and do it again in another life. But we do have more or less like a contract that we make, or a type of, not contract. This contract seems too much like law and lawyers and things like that. It's more or less of a plan that we plan out before we come, and we say, I want to experience this, and this with these parents, and this, and I want this to happen, and this to happen, and this to happen. Sometimes we go down that road, sometimes we don't, and so we don't do all the experiences we come here to do. Sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't, and that's how I believe it works.
One thing is that about the life review and about your experiences. And you had mentioned that sometimes you can figure it out now, and then you won't have to repeat it again, perhaps in
Yeah.
another life.
Yeah.
But the life review is that so many things that I didn't understand in life
Mm.
that I understood in the life review. So I don't know, but I don't think I would have to repeat them again. So even if I'm many things, I'm sure I will, but many things, if you come to terms with it and understand it, you may not have to repeat it again.
Maybe you won't. Yeah, it depends. It depends on the level of your consciousness when you leave, when we've finished here and we've done all we've got to do, and say, right, I can't do any more, so let's go home. And so we go home, and then we sort out what we've done and what we haven't done, what we've learned, what we haven't learned, what we've yet to learn, and sometimes we come back, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we come back
Wow.
immediately, sometimes we don't. And what you were talking about before about the actual experience preparing you for something else comes later. I spoke to an ND here, Spanish lady who's a friend of mine now. We have a group of WhatsApp of all different NDEs and mediums and different people. And this is one of the first NDEs I interviewed. And she had a very, very deep NDE, very oof. And she didn't realize that the NDE, when she had it, because she was quite young, was for what was coming later. Because she had it when she had her second son. When her second son was born, she had a bad birth and she died and she came back. And she had this experience. But then she had another son after that. And when this son was 18, he had a very rare disease and he died at 18. And she realized that she had been prepared for that by having the NDE, because she knew what was on the other side and she knew what he was going to go through and where he was going.
Mm.
That was why she had the NDE. But more importantly than that, she had the NDE to let him go, because he was suffering really, really badly at the end. And he was hanging, and they were hanging on to him, and he couldn't go because they were hanging on to him. And so she realized this, and she said, because of her experience, she said, it's okay. We'll be okay. Don't worry. Your father and I will be fine. You can go. Go. You'll still be here. I know you'll still be here only in spirit, but you won't be here in body, but you'll be here in spirit. But you can go. 20 minutes later, he died.
Oh.
She was preparing her, so she would have been prepared for that with her NDE 18 or 20 years before, for that moment.
I hope what I'm going to say won't be misinterpreted, but in many ways, that's a beautiful story.
It
You know,
is.
it
It is.
is.
She's so wow. She's such a spiritual person. I mean, you should hear her talking about it. She's so full of joy when she talks about it. She's so proud of her son and the way he did it and the way, and she talks to him now. She channels him now. She speaks to him every day. So she knew that he was going to be there, and she gives her signs. He's with her all the time. But because she accepted of what was happening to him and where he is now. Because most people, when a loved one, especially a son, I mean, your children should never die before you. That's the first thing I should say. Because I have 3 children, and if any of them die before me, I don't know what I would do. But from her understanding with the NDE, she knew that she had to let him go. And she was letting him go physically, but she knew he was going to be there all the time. And she's so happy now, and she's really, really happy that he's there all the time. And she's such a brave woman, such a hard life, and wow, she's so spiritual. It's just incredible.
Well, I would like to share with you, it wasn't so much the NDE wasn't the purpose of my experience. The NDE was just part of this greater experience
Yeah,
and if I were to take just a couple of minutes and just explain it, because I think that it may be of meaning to people,
of course.
is that about 10 years before my motorcycle accident, I was just driving down the road one day, one 4th of July, on my Harley Davidson, and I saw a car driving the wrong way on the highway. And I had this whole interaction with them, and they wound up hitting a limousine and killing a little girl and the limo driver. And there were allegations that the gentleman had been drinking. And I was called to testify in this trial. And they were actually charging the gentleman with murder, second-degree murder, not manslaughter. They called it depraved indifference. There's some legal terms to it.
Right.
And so I was on the stand for 2 days. It was tough, but I was ready for it. I'm from New York, and there's a certain sense of ability to talk against an attorney. I mean, it communicates. So I felt pretty comfortable with it, and I believe I contributed to convicting that fella. And what happened is I saw the parents of the child, and they were devastated. But even they gave this guy a 16-year sentence, and he was a young kid. He was only 20 years old. And I had very mixed feelings about it, because I didn't think he was a bad person. I just think he made an awful mistake that he couldn't take back. But I just bared the truth to the best of my ability. But I saw how heartbroken the parents were, and how much they expressed. I don't know how to say it, but they were very angry. They were very, and I understood that, but I understood their anger, and I also understood that young kid. And then when I had my motorcycle accident 10 years later, and I went to that place and I learned all these things, and I had this life review. And then after that, I lost my son to a drug overdose. And I was fortunate because I had cameras on the house, and the drug dealer actually came to the house and delivered the drugs. So I had everything on film, and my son was an athlete, so he didn't have any other drugs in his system. And so they were able to arrest this guy, and they actually charged him with murder, second-degree murder, the very same charge that they charged that other fella in the beginning. And when I went to the trial, and I was so angry. I had hatred in my heart. I wanted to see that guy, and I just really, oh boy, I hope the police were there to stop me. But when I saw the kid, I saw nothing but a drug-addicted kid who just made some awful mistakes in life. And I don't know, the hatred all went away, and I just felt to say it was love, that's a wrong thing. Is that I wanted things to be better for him. I wanted him to turn his life around. It wasn't about vengeance or anything else. I just wanted things to be better. I understand punishment, and spiritualists shouldn't run governments. I understand that. When the barbarians are at the gate, you gotta face that reality. But I felt nothing but love and compassion for this person.
That's the word.
And that's what I think the purpose of my near-death experience was. Is that I experienced this crazy event with this guy killing this little girl and this limo driver, that I had this near-death experience. I believe that perhaps that whole experience was part of my life review. I don't recall, but I bet you it was. So when I was placed in that same situation, a very similar situation, I was able
on the opposite side,
but not even to forgive never came into my mind. It was that it was different, and that's what that near-death experience, it was all part of this grand scheme. Did all this happen by accident, or was it a plan? I don't know.
No, you could being on one side of that, what happened, and then being on the other side is no coincidence.
And that's where I came with the moral of this experience, that life is good and people are good, even when very sad things happen. But those are just words. But if you could find out why for yourself, those things are true.
Of course.
They may bring you peace in this life and any other life that comes after.
Of course. And then if you think about it, you think, oh, this kid gave the drugs to my son, and he but if it wasn't that kid, it would have been another kid. So if it wasn't that, it would have been another one. If it wasn't that one, it would have been another one. So it wasn't that particular kid who was to actually blame.
The gentleman who sold my son the drugs, he wrote me a letter a couple Christmases ago. It was probably part of an intervention plan, and he he said he was sorry. And I wrote him a letter back. It took a lot of time thinking about it. And I told him that if he wants to make it up to me, to serve his time honorably, get out, find himself a good woman, have a family, go to your son's graduation and his weddings. And someday when your time is done, you're surrounded by your great grandchildren holding your hands. If you could do that for me,
Yeah, that's
that'll
great.
be payment.
That, of course, doing the right thing, doing the right thing. Just use it as a learning circle, and to grow as a person, and to get
Well,
make him as long as that experience makes him a better person, then it's a good experience.
words to live by. Peter, it's been an honor to speak with you. I really enjoyed our chat,
Me
and
too.
I just I wish you the best of success in your
Thank
mission with
you.
your podcast. I'm gonna be keeping an eye on what's going on,
Good.
and I
I've got
thank
a
you
few
for
books
honoring
already,
me.
so we're going to have a few more NDs on the program. So in the future, but this is the first one of many, I hope. So thanks very much for being on the program. I'll put your link for your book in the description of the video. So if anyone wants to get your book, they've got it there. And I'll speak to you soon, I hope. We'll keep in contact.
Peter Satnam, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for being there too. This every week. I know that some of you are new to this program because it's the first time I've done it in English, but I'm sure some of the Spanish speakers also speak English and they're watching too. So see you next week. So, Juana.